understand racism, and in particular systemic racism, we need to look at it in the illustration of a stream, where society is the stream and individuals are fish within the stream. If you know anything about streams, there are currents within the stream. And these currents are always pulling and pushing everything within this particular stream in a particular direction. Now, there are stronger currents, such as white currents, that will push things in a particular direction. That will be represented such as a mass shooting in a black church. Or there are more or less observable currents, such as the undercurrents, that will pull you downstream. Less observable, obscure, but they still pull you downstream. What's interesting about this current analogy and this stream analogy is that if you're a fish within the stream, you can either choose to swim with the stream downstream and assist in the system of the stream where it's going. Or you can choose to be neutral and say, well, this is not my problem. I am not going to get involved. Now, the difference between the person or the fish that decides to be neutral and the fish that is swimming with the stream, assisting the system, is that the fish who's swimming with the stream just gets there faster, but they're all going in the same direction. And I think this is a very important lesson for us within systemic racism, to understand that racism, in particular systemic racism, has nothing to do with your heart, your head, who you are, or even your bone. I always hear people say, I don't have a racist bone in my body. But it has everything to do with your actions and inactions in assisting this particular system that already exists, that when you're born, it's already there. It's already in place. And the goal of this episode is to help us understand what is racism and what does being an anti-racist look like. And I think being an anti-racist looks like us going back to that stream analogy. And when we look at the stream analogy, we need to be the fish that swims upstream against the current. A fish that is swimming towards equity, towards equality, and towards inclusion. But before we get too deep into the nuances of what it means to be an anti-racist or what racism is, we've got an African chef who's going to introduce us to new African cultures through the African cuisines. Welcome to the Anti-Racist Hot Dog Show. I'm your host, Wandile Mthiyane. Let's go see our chef, Chef Pali, everyone. And we're back. Welcome back. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
This looks very colorful. I'm very excited about what are we making today? Which culture are we exploring today?
Okay, so today we are exploring, I think, probably like 6-7 different cultures in one.
Let's go. I'm ready.
My favorite part, though, about this meal is that during apartheid times, right, you would think that maybe we were all being separated as blacks and whites because of a whole lot of cultural differences. Food did not see color. My grandmother used to be a helper, a maid, for a German family and an Afrikaner family and an English family. And the one thing that all of them ate, that we had also eaten at home in Soweto, was the exact meal I'm making today. So as much as you can tell black people not to sit here, on the table was the same food in a leafy green suburb and in the township. That's anti-racist to me.
That is a special story.
Yes,
and I'm glad your grandmother passed that to you. So when we come together in food, we are one people.
Yes, that's the beauty of it.
We may divide ourselves out of arbitrary things such as race and skin color, etc. But at the end of the day, we all eat. And that's what we're about to do today.
Exactly. And today is a culmination of all those cultures in
coming
one.
Together in one. Show us how these ingredients come together.
Let's get this show on the road.
100%. And then maybe we will learn as people to start coming together ourselves. Yes.
Do you remember this from the first episode?
Yes, Millie Meal.
Millie Meal,
exactly. I told you I'm a good chef. Okay.
So Millie Meal, in the first one we made a crumbly textured bap.
Yes, I remember
Today we are making bap.
Bap.
Yes. So here you go.
Okay, I'm stirring.
Stirring again.
Let's get it.
And we're going to do a porridge-like consistency. Can you stir faster? We don't want lumps as we go.
Gotcha.
This is my little trick. Most likely our grandmothers would say this is a very English way of doing things. But I'm going to whisk it up so that I prevent any lumps ahead. Does it matter if it's
clockwise or counterclockwise?
I think just keep it one way. One way, please.
Okay, got it.
All right. And I think I like this consistency. Perfect. Just go a little bit faster, sort of like you're whisking an egg or something.
Let's get it.
There we go. Awesome, awesome. And then while you do that, let me just add some salt. We had forgotten at the beginning to add it in our water.
A little salt.
Add a little salt, and then we turn down the heat.
It's getting harder to stir.
Yes, exactly. It's getting nice and thick.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. Now we can leave that, turn it down all the way down to 2.
Okay.
And now if you can just get the lid for me over there.
For sure, I got it.
Perfection.
So what do we do
now,
next? So this is the bap.
So that's the bap.
Okay,
so now
what
we've
is
got
this
our
for?
starch. This now is for something very special to South Africans called boerewors.
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 Hey.
Boerewors.
What is a boerewors?
So what is a boer?
What is a boer first? Yeah.
Yes. A boer is actually an Afrikaans word for farmer.
Ah.
Yes.
I actually
Afrikaans
didn't know
word.
that.
It's an Afrikaans word for farmer.
Okay.
And basically, wors is sausage, so it's a farmer's sausage.
Ah.
Yes. So Afrikaans people are of Dutch descent.
Yeah.
And so they became farmers, and they
In South Africa.
In South Africa.
Yes.
And they started making their own sausages.
Uh-huh.
However, the ingredients used in the sausage are coriander, nutmeg,
Okay.
things that you'd find on the spice route.
Okay, got it.
Yes,
On that spectrum.
yes, the spice route. Remember, the spice route used to come past southern tip of Africa, which is us.
Yes.
And so we have our own sausage. It's called a boerewors.
Boerewors,
It's also larger in size than a normal sausage.
100%.
So we'll be making a boerewors with a tomato relish, as well as spinach. Well, in culture, you're not using spinach. It's actually called morogo or imifino,
Okay.
which is a wild...
Growing
let's say a wild
plant.
growing
Yeah,
plant,
yeah.
So that's something that was also used to be referred to as like nature's gift.
Nature's gift.
Nature's gift, because you did nothing for it.
You didn't have to pay for it.
You didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to farm it. You didn't have to do
It
anything.
just grew by itself.
Exactly.
And you ate it.
Exactly.
I love this. So what do we start with?
Okay, so let's do this. I know you're gonna have to get back to your show.
Yes.
So
yes.
let's do you're a vegetarian, right?
I am vegetarian.
Let's stick to this. Goes for the spinach.
Okay.
Let's start with the spinach.
I'm doing the spinach.
Put some oil in there.
All of it?
Nope, not all of it. That's actually perfect.
That's good. Okay.
As you can see, the pan
What
is
type
already
of oil is this?
nice and hot. It's olive oil.
Olive oil, yeah.
And then just smear it around just a little bit. Let's just get that around. Perfection. All right, now you can add...
I'm a Boer vegetarian.
You're a
That's what
Boer
it is.
vegetarian.
That's
You're
what it is.
vegetarian farmer.
Vegetarian
Oh,
farmer.
wow. That's cute.
That's it.
All right, so as that goes along, I'd like you to add some ginger and garlic, crushed ginger and garlic.
Garlic.
Perfect. Okay.
Sure.
Then for color, as we know, spinach is green, so I'd like to add some yellow peppers. Very colorful dish. Just
Very
yes,
colourful dish.
exactly. Just like Africa. I mean, we're very colorful people.
The Rainbow Nation.
Rainbow Nation. All right, I want you to just stir that up a little bit.
Okay.
All right, awesome.
We're stirring.
Perfect.
But as we stir and move on to add the spinach and all of these, I'm going to run over and talk about racism. I'll leave you to this.
Oh, so you're ditching me. That's okay.
I'm ditching you for racism. I'm trying to end racism. But thank you very much. I'll see you after this segment, and I can't wait to taste all of this, except for the boerewors, because I'll be eating the boer veggie.
Yes, exactly.
Chef
Sure, Wandile.
Pali, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Anti-Racist Hot Dog Show. The only show that serves you African cuisine with a side of anti-racism. I'm your host, Wandile Mthiyane, and today we're tackling a topic that's very important, very dear to my heart, and this idea of what is racism? Or maybe, should I put it as, how am I racist when I don't know that I'm racist? So we've got an expert, our senior What is Racism correspondent, Sbusiso Mthimkhulu, is going to help us delve deep into this topic. Sbusiso Mthimkhulu, welcome, sir.
What's up, bro?
Welcome to the Anti-Racist Hot Dog Show.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
It's a tremendous pleasure to have you. So really, what is racism?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Okay.
We have to obviously
So
enter into it.
let's delve deep into it then.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
All right, cool.
So I guess then the question that I have is racism necessarily deliberate, and malicious, or could it also be unintended, something that just happens, for example? Because when you think about it, when you look at something as the Charleston, South Carolina shooting,
Okay.
right, where 9 black pupils were killed, everyone agrees that was an act of racism.
Of
But
course.
it's the other things where we start disagreeing whether it was actually racism or not racism. And I think the study by Kenneth and Mimi Clark really describes this, which was very fascinating. They
Okay.
did a study looking at young black girls and their racial identities, how they viewed and perceived their racial identities.
Yeah.
And they found that they gave these girls a white doll and a black doll, and they found that the young black girls chose the white doll over the black doll. Now, not only that,
Okay.
when they were asked, they attributed all the positive narratives towards the white doll, whilst they attributed negative narratives towards the black doll. I wish this is the end of it, but this is not. When these girls were challenged and asked, like, well, doesn't this doll look like you? They became emotional to relate to the doll they had just rejected.
Ish. Yeah, no?
But this is in the 40s.
Okay.
Recently, a Texas A&M professor by the name Tony Stevenson, did a similar research. But this time, what he did was he put together a diverse group of girls and diverse dolls. And he realized that, number one, the girls were more likely to pick a white doll and play with it. And when they did pick a black doll, they did things that were unnatural to the doll. Like you saw one girl cooking the doll, another girl stepping on the doll, which is what they were not doing with the white dolls. Like, how did we get here? Are we born racist? Like, is it the parents? Who are we to blame? Where is this coming from?
Ish. Wandile, I must say that what happened to the dolls is what happens in a greater society in general, you know. Like the shootings, that's just generally racist statements right there. It doesn't end there. The problem is bigger than that.
Okay.
If you had to stretch it, take what happened to New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Yeah, on New
Hurricane
Orleans.
Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
So when the flood happened,
Yeah.
the stores were obviously damaged,
Yeah.
and all the samples are there.
Yeah.
Free samples for everyone.
Yeah.
So the black people, when they took the samples,
Yeah.
the journalist stated that black people were looting.
Ooh.
But when the white community had taken the samples,
Yeah.
just as the same as blacks,
Yeah.
it's called white people just taking samples. So do you actually see?
Yeah.
You see it. If we had to stretch it even further,
Yeah.
let's take for example, you are trying to employ competitive people.
Yes.
You employ one black and one white.
Yeah.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah.
Judging from their experience, their education,
Yeah.
their dilemma, who they are, it's easier to choose from.
They went to Harvard. They're the Obamas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you have two unprivileged or incompetent people,
Yeah.
white people actually have the upper hand.
Tell me more. How?
If I may put it this way, it's easier for them to actually choose white person instead of a black person, because they know that it has a imbalance in terms of how
They perceive.
they're perceived, because when a black person doesn't know anything, he's nothing. Under the umbrella of racism,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's actually nothing.
Yeah.
He has to strive
For excellence.
for excellence for him.
To
He
be-
has to be perfect for him to get noticeable, recognizable. But when a white person doesn't have anything, it's like, no, we have to give him a job. Because how will he build his own life if you don't offer him the experience?
If we don't. So what I'm getting is that the white person's inexperience is seen as like, oh, opportunity for growth.
Exactly.
Black person's inexperience is like, oh, he's not experienced. So I'm not racist.
Exactly.
You know, he
I'm
just
not racist.
didn't have enough experience.
Exactly. So that's how they depict these two.
So what about this idea of being egalitarian? You know, like this idea of we're equal, etc.
Yeah. Being egalitarian actually stems from, remember what happened in the 60s?
Yeah.
The civil rights movement. The civil rights movement had this egalitarian perception of, no, we are equal.
Okay.
We need to be treated right.
Sure.
We need to, that was just jumping into a conclusion of solving the issue, but not the problem. Because they're not looking at actually nurturing the wound of who was racist. Because if I am racist to you, one day, as much as I've learned to be racist, I have to unlearn it for me to know how to be a better person.
100%.
You understand?
So they're jumping the gun.
Yes, they are jumping the gun. Other than that, they are even putting power into this racism because it gets under wraps, which is dangerous for human in general.
So what I'm getting at, blatant racism, after the 60s, everyone is egalitarian, equal.
Exactly.
Blatant racism sort of like goes underground, becomes subservient racism, which is even more dangerous because that's where the vague parts, we can't necessarily see it.
Look at this, né? From 1989, 4 decades ago, researchers have shown there's no whatsoever change in the discrimination in the workplace.
So over the past 4 decades, there hasn't been any change within discrimination.
Exactly.
Yeah. Say more.
Yeah. So it shows that racism occurs when a group or institution or individuals show more favoritism on individuals or a group of people based on race. So, but before we get into what is racism, we need to look at what is prejudice, what is discrimination, and what's bias. Maybe you can tell us more on that.
No. I'm glad you say this because Kim Scott, who wrote the book Radical Candor, she's amazing.
Okay.
She talks about these 3 distinctions. So bias, often known as implicit bias, is something that sort of jumps into your brain as a result of conditioning and your upbringing, etc. So it's not meaning it. But we're not supposed to be subjects or slaves to our brain. We can slow down and challenge our biases and our stereotypes that we've been raised with. So that's bias, like how we act or look at things, how we view things based on those stereotypes.
Okay.
And then prejudice on the other end is when we stop and think about it and continue to believe that. Now it's intentional.
Exactly.
We're intentionally being biased. And we're intentional to view people in a particular way, right? Now, and then discrimination is the act. Now, when you act in discriminatory ways or in particular ways that negatively affect certain people because of their race, that's discrimination. Now, we've seen bias, prejudice and discrimination. Then what is racism?
Racism is prejudice plus power rooted in historical backing. Maybe that's how you see it.
So what I'm getting is that racism is prejudice plus power rooted in historical precedents. So in other words, if someone says that, white people are lazy and they cannot rule themselves, that's why we need to govern them.
Exactly.
Right? That will be seen as racial prejudice coming from a black person.
Of course.
But now the same sentence said by a white person saying, well, black people are lazy and we need to control them. That is racist.
Yes.
Because there's a historical precedent that goes back to colonization.
Of course.
Goes back to slavery.
Of course.
That because of the sentiments, people have been treated in this way. But what's fascinating about this whole conversation is understanding that actually majority of racism is more favoritism towards your in-group than it is being negative against black people.
Exactly.
So it's not caring, leaving black people by themselves, but favoring your in-group and supplying them with opportunities, etc.
Exactly.
Right? So this is very fascinating.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
It goes back to the example that you're using in that monologue about using a different system.
Systemic racism, right?
Exactly.
So where we are living in a world that's already a system where everything is moving downstream.
Exactly.
And as individuals, we either choose to fight against the currents going up,
Yeah.
or we are contributing towards systemic racism by either staying neutral or by actively being prejudiced, being biased, and being racist within the workplace and within the world.
Exactly.
Man, this has been very informative. Thank you very much for coming to this show.
No problem.
Thank you very much for coming to the show. So, Sbu, I guess the 3 points that I'm getting today is that I think number one, that implicit bias may be individual.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work alone. It's part of a bigger system that affects systemic racism and all these other elements.
Exactly.
And then I think number two, I'm realizing for the first time that actually majority of what we see as racism isn't, what contributes to racism mostly isn't hating on a particular group, like black people or Latinos, but it's in-group favoritism of your own in-group at the expense of others. That's it. And then last but not least, it is not enough to not be racist. We gotta be anti-racist. Like that fish, because the system is already pulling us down. We gotta pull upstream, swim against the current towards equity, towards equality, and towards inclusion. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you, man.
Like Jesus himself. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it too.
So for our next portion of the segment, I'm really excited. We have an African chef who's going to introduce us to African culture through African cuisine. Ladies and gentlemen, here is our resident chef, Chef Pali, who's going to take us on this journey. Anti-racist chef, Pali, sir. And we are done.
Yes.
I am excited about the food. What do we have now?
So this is the final product.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the boerewors spinach.
Hey.
And we've got our boerewors here, and that's our tomato relish, and that's the pap.
I don't know what to call this, but being excited for food you can't eat. Not only am I lactose, but turns out I'm also vegetarian.
Oh my God, what do you eat?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. But luckily, we do have an incredible array of camera crews. So camera crew number one, can you please come and grab a little bit of this delicious dish? Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Camera crew number.
Oh, camera crew two. One. So what do you have here?
So here we've got pap, tomato relish, boerewors, traditional boerewors, and we've got imifino, we've got spinach over here.
Okay. Can I dig in?
Yes, sure.
For sure,
There's a
no
spoon.
pressure. And you get to rate it too afterwards. So
Oh, cool. Okay, let's start here.
okay. This looks really good.
How does it taste? How does it taste?
Well, you can taste the pap and the spinach.
Maybe it's time to drop this vegetarian
I-
thing. You know
I
what I
think
mean?
it's time.
Like get right into it.
I really think it's time.
So do you
It's
think?
actually very nice.
Yeah. Well,
Onto the voice.
oh, onto the voice. Yes, yes. Ooh. It's anti-racist. It's anti-racist. You heard it here, folks. Chef Pali, the great anti-racist chef. Thank you very much for
It's
coming to the show
An
again
extreme
today.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that's it for us at the Anti-Racist Hot Dog today.